So I started this presentation on my disability and how my life goes. And I live with spastic cerebral palsy. My YouTube channel name is underneath there, but I'll get started. This is a video, but I'm not going to be playing it. I'm just going to talk to you about what the disability is. So what the disability is you're born with it for all your life. Some of it you're diagnosed like later in life, but mostly at birth. So this is just a video, but you can, if you want to, you can go watch other videos on the disability. And so it just tells you information about the disability. And so if you want to know more information, just go ahead and look at videos. What does spastic cerebral palsy look like? Spastic cerebral palsy is the most common type of cerebral palsy. The muscles of people with spastic cerebral palsy feel stiff and their movements may look stiff and did I skip? Where am I? Oh crap. Did I just
May look stiff and jerky.
May look stiff and jerky. Spasticity is a form of hypertonia or increased muscle tone. This results in stiff muscles, which can make movement difficult or even impossible. Next slide. What is the main cause of cerebral palsy? The cause of cerebral palsy is a brain injury or a brain malfunction that occurs while the brain is developing, before, during, or after birth. As a result of the brain damage during brain development, a child's muscle control, muscle coordination, muscle tone, reflex, posture, and balance can be affected. So that means you might not be able to keep your body up. So as soon as you're trying to sit up on your own, you might just flop right over again. So you can't keep yourself up. People with cerebral palsy need help with. Some people with cerebral palsy need help with changing themselves. Some people with cerebral palsy need help with eating or drinking. So some of them don't have really good use of their hands. Some of them can't even eat at all because they have swallowing problems. So they use like G-tubes that go through the belly button. So you can't really taste. It just goes right through your belly button and goes in your stomach. Where am I? Okay. Some people with cerebral palsy need help with getting out of their wheelchairs. Some people with cerebral palsy need help with bathing themselves. Some people with cerebral palsy need help with opening doors. And there are a lot more things that people with cerebral palsy need help with. How many different types of cerebral palsy are there? 4. Each type of cerebral palsy is categorized using 2 factors: the type of movement issues and the body parts being affected and There are 4 major types of cerebral palsy: spastic, athetoid, ataxic, and mixed types. So what it means by mixed types is, so you can have, like, let's say spastic and like athetoid can be mixed together. So where all that it just it affects the brain. So in another slide, it will show you where the different types of cerebral palsy can affect in the brain, which I'll show you later. Moving on. When are you usually diagnosed with cerebral palsy? You are usually diagnosed with cerebral palsy at birth, or sometimes before birth, or after birth. Fun fact about this is that they celebrate cerebral palsy awareness in March, but this is just the meaning of the ribbon. Cerebral palsy awareness is represented by a green ribbon. CP is one the most common childhood disabilities, and represents a wide range of fine and gross motor function impairment, mental delay, and other what does that say? Combinations caused by injury to the brain through trauma, lack of oxygen at birth, or other causes. Oh, there. People with cerebral palsy can walk differently. People with cerebral palsy can be in a wheelchair. People with cerebral palsy might communicate in a different way than we do. So what that means is they might stutter, or they might not be able to talk at all. So they use like a communication device. People with cerebral palsy might have stiff muscles or movements. People with cerebral palsy can be born premature. So premature just means like you're born like earlier than what you should be. So like I was tiny. So being premature means sometimes you can end up with a hole in your heart, but I actually had a hole in my heart, but it closed up, so I didn't need surgery on it, thankfully. Some people with cerebral palsy have trouble swallowing. That's what I was talking about. Like some of them have to use G-tubes and stuff to feed. And there are more reasons of why people with cerebral palsy might look different than others. Next slide. Okay. Where on your body can be affected by spastic cerebral palsy? So
Hemiplegia, the first part?
The first one is what I have. So that means that, so it's what?
Hemiplegia.
Hemiplegia. So, well, that's not the one I have, but I actually have the quadriplegia, which means it affects all the 4 limbs. So if you ever see me in the hallway, sometimes I jump. So it just means that, like, something's telling me in my brain, and it's making my whole body react. So I just end up jumping to random sounds. So yeah, like there's 4 different types. You can look at all the different types, but there's wild impairment, which is the lighter purple, and then the severe involvement, which means the darker part is where it's mostly interferes with the body. So there's, can you just say all the names for this time?
Sure. Hemiplasia, diplasia, quadriplegia, aphetoid, dystonic, and ataxic.
So those are just all the different names of all the different types of cerebral palsy. Most people are in wheelchairs, but some of them are lucky enough to even use walkers, and some of them are lucky and they might just walk differently but not have to use a walker at all. The sad thing about walking differently is people come up to us and judge us, and they like you can see on the road, like on the street sometimes, as somebody with cerebral palsy walks by, as a kid walks by, a kid can scream at you because you walk differently. And then we try to explain, but then they run away. Next. Okay, I don't know why this is not working. Okay, there, where's my cord? Okay, just go like here. Why is it not working? Oh, there we go. Things that help you with everyday life living with cerebral palsy. So, a lift is a device used to move someone from place to place when they can't move themselves as easily as others. So some of us can't walk, so we have to use lifts or really strong people just to pick us up and put us anywhere we have to go, even to do our personal care. But a ramp is used to help somebody with a disability that cannot use the stairs. Automatic doors and doors with push buttons help people with disabilities get in and out of buildings. People with cerebral palsy should do exercise to help their stiff muscles and their movements. So the reason why we need to do exercise a lot more often than you guys do is because if we don't do exercise, once we get older, our hands can lock into a position where our arms are going to be so close to our bodies that we can't even do stuff with our hands anymore. So that's why it's important for us to do exercise. Is that it? No. People with cerebral palsy may have service dogs to help them with their everyday lives. So if you ever seen a service dog, it helps people that are blind, that can't hear, and etc. Can't really move that easily. So service dogs are starting to help kids that have problems or disabilities. And there are a lot more things that can help people with cerebral palsy in their everyday lives. Okay, I think I'm just going to proceed. Why do people with cerebral palsy get judged and picked on or even bullied on? Because we might walk differently than others. So as I was saying, is like, even if we're in our walkers, we might walk differently. Like, we might bunch knees together. So we might rub our knees together when we walk, or we might just like tumble and like not walk as far as usual. Anything like we might not be able to walk as far when we, so yeah, we walk differently, but that's okay. Because we might be in a wheelchair. So for me, my everyday life is when I go in public, people like me get stared at a lot. Like me and my sister used to go to this school, but she has a different disability called spina bifida. We always get stared at. We always get judged. We always get a lot of questions. Even from adults, we get questions. Like, why are you in a wheelchair? How come you have a disability? Sometimes I think they're even asking us, like, why we're even living. But I just stay strong and answer the question and then move on. Because we might have speech problems or communicate in a different way than everyone else, because we might have weird sudden movements to our bodies. So like I was saying, as I'm spastic, so I jump a lot. So like I jump at every sudden noise mostly, like closing doors. And if someone even comes right behind me, I might jump. Like anything, even easy, I can jump like 10 feet sometimes. Because we might have trouble picking up something, so, or like grabbing something in stores. So people with a disability, especially when I'm in public, like I'm trying to grab something from a higher shelf, and someone comes and asks me. They don't even ask me. They just grab it, and it's like, I can do this. You have to ask me before you grab it for me, right? They're just thinking that I can't grab it because I'm in a chair, but I like to try before I ask them. There are a lot more reasons of why do people with cerebral palsy get judged and picked on or even bullied on. So there's a lot more reasons, sadly. These are just some quotes. I like the first two especially. I'm in a wheelchair. It's not who I am, it's just how I get around. So a lot of people define me as a person in a wheelchair, but that's just how I get around. Like, they shouldn't define me of a wheelchair girl. They should just define me as, this is just how I move around. And these are just some other quotes. Some angels have wings and some have wheels. And if you want to look at the rest of them, go ahead. Okay. Next slide. The end. And thank you for listening to my presentation on cerebral palsy. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The CP Game. Please respect and listen to people with cerebral palsy. So before judging someone that looks different, I suggest you just go talk to them before you start judging them as soon as you look at them. Good job. And as I said, if you guys want to look at more, on more information, you can go online and look at more videos on the disability. So if you ever want to know more, you can always go on YouTube and look at more videos.